I think the Tennessee Titans absolutely should trade for Tua Tagovailoa, and I'll explain right now on the Shoemake Take. Let's get it. All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope y'all are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take, talking about whether or not the Tennessee Titans should trade for Tua Tagovailoa. I saw this yesterday circling around in the news, and it's got a bunch of people talking, it's got a bunch of people debating, and I'm here to tell you that they absolutely should. But here's how this is going to work. Here's how we're going to break this down. First of all, we have to establish some background. What kind of trade would this be? What does it look like? What it is? Like, we're going to answer all those questions. Then I'll explain to you why it makes sense for the Tennessee Titans and why I think it's a great idea. We'll also look at some consequences, things that could cause problems later down the road in the entirety of the NFL. And then I'll conclude with the question, will this actually happen? So that being said, let's break it down and establish our background. This type of trade, trading Tua Tagovailoa to, in this case, the Tennessee Titans, would be known as a salary dump trade. For those of you that do not know what that means, take a player that has a big contract like Tua Tagovailoa. They can't afford to just cut him, release him. They need to trade him in order to get rid of the big contract that they have, that they owe Tua Tagovailoa. So what do? You trade that player to a team that can absorb the salary in order for you to get the contract off your books, so you no longer have to pay him that type of money. So this type of trade is way more common in the NBA. It happens way more often. A couple examples are when Kemba Walker got traded to the Thunder in 2021, and when Jordan Poole of the Warriors got traded to the Washington Wizards, I think it was in 2023. So this is something that happens way more often there. In the NFL, there's one gold standard, one-to-one, carbon copy, whatever order you want to use, of a same style trade, and that's when Brock Osweiler was traded from Houston to the Cleveland Browns all of those years ago. I think that was 2018 when that happened, either 2017 or 2018 when that trade happened. And why would the Cleveland Browns trade for a high-priced quarterback in Brock Osweiler? Why would the Titans trade for Tua Tagovailoa? Well, here's why. Draft capital. In order to get this high-priced quarterback or high-priced player off your books, you can't just give it to a player or another team. A team isn't just going to willingly take a bunch of salary for nothing. So that's where you attach a draft pick. Like, okay, you want to take all this money and get it off our books? Fine, we'll give you a high draft pick in return to make it worth your while. And that's what happened here. The Cleveland Browns got a second-round pick from the Houston Texans to offload Brock Osweiler's contract off their books. And we'll circle this now, getting into Tua Tagovailoa. In 2026, he is owed $39 million in salary. And considering what the Dolphins have done with Tyreek Hill, cutting Bradley Chubb, they are trying to get rid of all their high-priced contracts as fast as possible. They are trying to do a hard reset. So trading Tua Tagovailoa makes a lot of sense, not just because of the salary cap hit, but also the Dolphins would owe Tua $99 million against the cap if they were to cut him. For perspective, the Titans have the most cap space in the NFL with $99 million to $100 million, depending on which website you look at. So if the Titans, for example, were to cut Tua Tagovailoa, it would take all of their money up. And so Miami, considering that they're near the middle of the salary cap range, they absolutely cannot afford. No team can afford a $99 million dead cap hit. You would essentially be taking a year off of doing anything to get your roster better. You couldn't draft players because you couldn't sign them because you don't have the money. You couldn't bring in free agents. Like, you would literally just be taking a gap year of doing anything on your roster. And obviously, teams aren't going to do that. So the only option the Dolphins have is to either keep him or, in this case, trade him. So why would this make sense for the Tennessee Titans? First of all, it's because they have the salary to take on the contract. They currently have, we'll say, $100 million in cap space. That number can also go up. However, a couple moves the Titans could make to get even more salary they could cut corner L'Jarius Sneed. That would save $12 million on the salary cap this offseason. If they were to cut Tony Pollard, their running back, that would save $7 million. And then I think more than likely, I think it would be almost certain that the Titans are going to extend Jeffrey Simmons. So you take the math of $12 million cutting Sneed, $7 million cutting Tony Pollard, and you look at certain websites on looking at the financials of what a Big Jeff extension would look like, you could add about $30 million in salary cap, which you trade for Tua Tagovailoa, you could absorb all of the salary, and you'd have just about as much money as you did going into the offseason originally. So you're almost back to square one. So the Titans are financially in a prime position to take Tua Tagovailoa's contract, and also that leads us to the draft pick. You could easily, if we look at the Osweiler trade, the Titans could get a second-round pick for trading for Tua, and the Dolphins have the 43rd overall pick in the second round. And for the Titans, who are a rebuilding football team that are trying to get younger, they're also trying to be a draft and develop first football team over spending a bunch of money in free agency. Having a second round pick would be absolutely monstrously valuable for a team like the Tennessee Titans. And it's not just the extra pick that's good, it's the ability and the availabilities that come to you when you have that second round pick. You could just stick and pick. You could take an edge rusher at the top of the draft. I'm telling you right now, as a Titans fan, they are taking either Reuben Bain or Arvell Reese or David Bailey at 4th overall. They're going edge rusher. At this point, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're going edge rusher. So you go into the second round, and you could use a second round pick on a wide receiver and another one on a cornerback. You could just stick and pick a player at those two spots if you have a guy that's on your board that you think is good enough. Or you could take a player at 43 and then use your other pick and trade back and get another third round pick, for example. Or you could do the opposite and package both of those second round picks and trade back into the first round, whether you want one of those corners like Jermon McCoy or Roderick Hood or Brandon Cisse, or if you want a receiver like Chris Brazel or Casey Concepcion, if those receivers start falling off the board very quickly. So the Titans have a lot of availability on what they can do with that draft pick if they were able to get it, and that would help them out a lot in their rebuild. And the third thing that makes sense for the Titans to be able to trade it is because they need a good backup quarterback. Here's the deal. Last year, the Tennessee Titans had Brandon Allen as their backup. He is not a legit starting quarterback or backup quarterback in the NFL at all. He is more of a teacher to the offense to help Cam Ward. And when you're a bad football team like the Titans, if Cam Ward were to get hurt per se, you would want to tank the season, just lose as many games as you can and get another high draft pick. Because at that point, why would you want to win games? Why would the Titans want to win games in 2025 if Cam Ward were to go down? They're already bad. There's no need to win more games. Get a higher draft pick. Joe Burrow got hurt in his rookie year. They tanked the season. And what happened with the Bengals the following year? They got Jamar Chase. They got the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the entire NFL just because of that, because they tanked the season. But now the Titans have a new coaching staff. They're going to have a better roster. They're going to have better players, a lot of cap space, good draft capital. Now the Titans need to take a step forward. They need to start winning more games. So having a quarterback that can come in case Cam Ward gets hurt for a certain amount of time, that can win you a couple games, steer the ship in the right direction and keep it stable, that is what they need in a backup quarterback. And Tua Tagovailoa would give them that exponentially. Tua would be one of the best backups in the NFL. He's worked with Brian Daboll, the Titans offensive coordinator, when they were both at Alabama, so there's a connection there. I think it makes a lot of sense for those three reasons. You have the money to take on the contract, you will get a draft pick in return, which is important for the Titans' future, and then you get a backup quarterback, one of the best in the NFL, that helps elevate your entire quarterback room exponentially. So now let's look at the consequences. Now, it's not specifically to the Titans. The consequences here are more NFL-wide, because a trade like this, you look at the NBA and look at how that works. You see a lot of teams paying max contracts, and then they'll just dump off the salary and get a pick back. And that could set a bad precedent in the NFL, because it is technically a loophole if you think about it. Because, first of all, it already looks like to me that you're buying a draft pick. Draft picks are normally what? They're either earned with your draft position or with your record, I should say, and if you trade for them. The thing is, if you just give a big contract to a player and then it doesn't work out and then you just offload it to a rebuilding team that has a bunch of cap space like the Titans, and you have to give them a draft pick. I mean, if you're a bad football team, if you're the football team in this scenario, you could just take on a bunch of bad contracts with bad, and keep your roster bad, spend all your money on these bad contracts and players that aren't deserving of them, right? So you have a less overall roster. You're not spending money on free agency. You're going to spend money on your draft picks, of course. You have to. But you could do this and theoretically stock up on a bunch of draft picks. So, I mean, you are just absolutely exploiting the system at that point if it were to go to that extreme. And the other thing, too, is it's embarrassing for general managers. If you make a bad, contract, for example, let's use Albert Hainsworth, right? Or let's just use Tua, right? Bad contract, way overpriced, not deserving of the contract that he got. Dumping off a salary to another team is an admission that you made a mistake, that you made a franchise-altering mistake that was wrong, it was terrible, and it set your franchise back. If it became precedent that if you made a bad decision, you could just offload the contract and give up a draft pick and not suffer the financial consequences of your decisions, how would that look with other GMs across the NFL? Their owners might say, hey, we got a contract. We're in a similar situation. Why can't you do that? Why can't you do that? And it becomes an issue where if players or teams consistently pay high-priced players and then just offload their salaries with the cost of a draft pick, you get a bunch of teams that are taking risks for no reason, that suffer no financial consequences, and you have lower teams on the bottom that have more cap space that are just able to exploit the system and just get a bunch of draft picks. And you would think for parity that would be good, because now the bad teams are getting more and more opportunities to get the good players on their roster and fix their roster, make it better. But the problem is, and these teams that are still good don't have to consistently worry about spending a bunch of money and having to suffer the consequences. So you would think that the good teams would stay good and it would allow more opportunities for the bad teams to become good. And that's not how that works. Obviously, the power dynamics change in the NFL every 5 years or so. We're seeing it right now. The Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, those are not the top three teams in the NFL anymore. It has changed, and I think it's going to change permanently. While these teams might be still among the best, they're not going to be objectively the best anymore. That's going to be a change. So you can't just have the good teams constantly remain good, and then these other teams that are bad get more picks and become really good. The NFL doesn't work like that. You can't just have perfect parity. It's not possible. Even though we've seen the closest it's been, it's never going to be truly perfect. You're always going to have teams that are 3 wins, 2 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins. You're always going to have bad football teams. It just has to work that way. Mathematics, with the amount of wins that are possible, right? It all shows that. So it could be a slippery slope if more and more teams just started doing this, and I don't think it would be good for the product of the NFL. But I don't think that's going to happen. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I mean, think about it. The last time a big trade, like salary dump trade like this happened in the NFL was Brock Osweiler, which was almost a decade. So it's not like it's going to happen all of a sudden over the next couple of years with one trade of the Titans trade for Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think it's going to happen. And with that being said, will this trade happen? I'm going to lean towards no. But I will tell you this, that Tua definitely will get traded. He will get traded to a team that has a lot of cap space, that will probably take on maybe half of the salary, take a second round, maybe either take on the whole salary and take a second round pick, or take half of the salary and take a third round pick. That's what I'm guessing right now. But Tua's definitely gone. He's no longer in Miami. The other decisions that they've made with cutting Tyreek Hill and cutting Bradley Chubb have shown that. They have a new head coach. I think, did they get a new GM as well? I can't remember if they did or not. But it's clear that they're trying to do a hard reset of their franchise, and getting rid of Tua Tagovailoa, getting a new quarterback in here, definitely will testify to that. It will continue to show that narrative. And for the Titans' sake, hey, maybe you trade for Tua Tagovailoa and you give the Dolphins Will Levis and get Will Levis off the books. Will Levis is gone in Tennessee. He's not going to be here in 2026. So you can give Miami a talented quarterback that has a chance to become a starter. He would have that opportunity again. He wants a fresh opportunity. So it'd be good for Will Levis. And for Miami, shoot, you take a chance on a talented quarterback. Maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't. And if he's bad, then guess what? You get a top draft pick in next year's draft, which is going to have some pretty good quarterbacks. So with that being said, that is going to do it for breaking down this trade scenario. Saw a lot about it, decided to throw my hat into the ring, and I hope you guys have enjoyed my analysis. And if you have made it this far, please consider hitting the like button and the subscribe button. It's quick, it's easy, it's free, and if it's free, it's for me. You know what I'm saying? It helps me out a lot, growing my football passion to more and more people on the platform. We're nearly at 300 subscribers, so get us there. Get us at 300 subscribers. That'd be absolutely massive. I'd appreciate it. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you guys think? Should the Titans trade for Tua Tagovailoa? Does it make sense to you? Does it not make sense to you? Who else do you think could trade for Tua Tagovailoa and take on that massive salary? Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments. Lastly, make sure to follow me on social media, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. That is going to do it for this video. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys oh so very much. And as always, I will see you all next time.